Abraham Lincoln, pitta to his core. And his story is so beautiful because it tells you exactly how powerful the law of attraction and the universe and God and the human soul and spirit is. This man, when he first came out of the room, he was like, I want to leave my mark. He said to himself that he was going to leave this planet with a legacy. And that's exactly what he did. He was so important for the freedom of those in bondage, the freedom of slaves. He was so important to history for that reason, but he also was a self-made man. He taught himself law. He was a lawyer for a while before he joined the Illinois state legislature as the Democratic Whig Party, before he became the first Republican president. He is in the Wrestling Hall of Fame. He lost like once in 300 matches. And that just goes because one reason is because he had so long limbs. Like when he was 15, he was already 6 feet tall. Abraham Lincoln suffered from melancholy. He had a lot of death in his life, and melancholy back then just meant depression. It's been noted, a friend of his was like, you can't carry a pocket knife. I don't want you carrying, something sharp, because there was such a risk of him slitting his own wrist or killing himself. But he was like, I'm not going to kill myself before I leave my mark. And he was a morally opposed man to slavery. He did not believe that slavery was right. He felt sympathetic because when he was a kid, 13, 14, living with his father used to work him out to the neighbors, and he would have to bring all of his money back to his father when he was done. That was the way of the land in the North. That was the way of the land in the North. It's funny enough. I mean, you're working out your kids, while in the South is working out kids that aren't theirs. It's not right. But there was still this kind of indentured servitude type attitude in the North with their own children. So it wasn't a perfect idea for any side, but especially for the South. He felt sympathetic to the cause of slavery, which is why when he got elected to president, even though he told the South that he was not going to free the slaves, he told the South that he was not going to touch the issue of slavery. But the South did not listen because they already knew through his other work that he's done that he was morally opposed to it. So they succeeded. 7 states, starting in South Carolina, seceded in the span of like 3 months, from December to February, before he even got to the office, before he even sat down inside of the White House. There were already states that left. So he was like, no. I told you I wasn't going to touch this issue. But what's not going to happen is that the country gets split up. So he was very patient. He did not want to make the first move for battle, for war. So he waited for the South to attack. And then when they did, he was like, okay, so now we're going to put this country together. That was not his an initial idea to actually leave his mark on the world, on history, in that way. But yet, the universe, ask and it shall be given. Like, the universe, the God, the spirit, the human world, the soul, the creator, whatever's in charge, is like the genie. You make a wish, and if you believe in it, it will happen. It will come true. And that is the moral of the Abraham Lincoln story, is if you actually decide that you want something, let go of any resistance that you have, that will actually come to pass. And it will show itself. He told the South, hey, don't worry, everything's gonna be okay. But they didn't listen. And thank God they didn't listen, because that paved the way for me and every other Black or mixed person to actually be where we are today. So thank God the chips fell where they did. But Abraham Lincoln did a lot in that time. In his 4 years, in only 4 years, he did so much to actually make that a reality, to actually keep the country together. He used the Emancipation Proclamation and the freedom of the slaves in the southern states to actually cripple the South's economy, because the slaves was the workforce for the South. So it's prevented a lot of people who needed to actually have food to eat and to actually live while they were at war. It created a lot of strife, because you can't have a man in war if your family is hungry and starving. So it was an economic strategy, because the South had already seceded, so they couldn't have the Emancipation Proclamation had no actual validity in those states. But what it did do was provide a way for the escaped slaves to have some sort of safety and protection if they picked up arms and joined the Civil War on the side of the Union. So he was so smart. He paused habeas corpus. A lot of the things that he did back then went against the Constitution. He was not afraid to create his own laws in his own way. He was not afraid to act like a dictator would in order to propel his own cause. So he got a lot of strife for that. The Europeans had an opinion of him. Abolitionists had an opinion of him. The Southern slaveholders had an opinion of him. He was attacked mentally. He was a very polarizing character from all sides. There was really no one that was his friend when he was working as the president of the United States, keeping the country into one piece, or putting it back into one piece. So, and he was very much used to death. His mother died when he was 9 years old. His brother died in infancy when his brother was just a little tiny baby. His sister died in childbirth. His first love, Anne Rutledge, died. So, and then his child died. One of his sons died when the Civil War was actually going on. So he was all this death and despair, especially from the Civil War. It's like he aged so much. You can see the pictures of him from the time when he first got into office until the time, and those 4 years, those 4 years actually done. It looks like he aged 20 years. He felt every single death blow that war caused. He was very compassionate in that way, even though when even though he wasn't going to touch the issue of slavery before the South seceded, he was still a very compassionate and loving man. And even though he was very melancholy, as they said back then, which means depressed now, he still was a pure man. Like, just so pure, so good, so caring. That he aged so much during this 4-year period of his life. And he gave his life for the cause. I mean, John Wilkes Booth killed him because he was fighting this war. He won the war, thank God. Thank God. But Abraham Lincoln is so strong, pitta to his core. He said he taught himself law. He taught himself business. He was the first president, the only president to own a patent. He patented a device that kept steamboats afloat when they were traveling over water. I mean, he wanted to leave his mark, and he did. Thank you, the universe. Thank you, his strength and his character. Thank you for this story. Thank you for history, because it's like, yeah, things happen in your favor if you just believe that it does and believe that it will. Man, Abraham Lincoln, one of the best presidents ever. I mean, there's so much more to dig into him, because he's such a diverse character. He won like 299 out of 300 matches in wrestling. He's in the Wrestling Hall of Fame. He's just he left so many different marks on history. And he was kind of like a derelict in a way, because when he first started his journey, his life, he never really stayed at one place very long. He was a shopkeeper. He was just he did everything, basically. He did so many different jobs, and he skilled himself in so many different things, and even military strategy. He read books on, and he learned about. He actually went to one of the battlefields and was engaged himself hands-on. And this is really impressive. He test fired rifles and pistols on the White House lawn. He test fired these guns himself, these cannons, these muskets himself. He dreamed of his own death. He was kind of psychic in that way. He knew that he was not going to have that much longer to live. Yeah, he was depressed, and he could have possibly taken his own life. But he didn't. It just goes to show, like, the strength of a person, even when they could be perceived as being weak because of a mental block like depression. Even if you feel weak, you still have a calling on your life. And that's Abraham Lincoln to his pitta core. That's Abraham Lincoln. Such a strong man. Such a strong man. Everyone around him called him Mr. Lincoln. He was very charismatic. He was not afraid of putting his weaknesses out there and making it okay to laugh at, like deflating them so much where it's not even an issue. Like it's laughable. He's such a beautiful fucking man. Like Abraham Lincoln was so beautiful. What else to talk about? His wife even called him Mr. Lincoln. And his wife was crazy. A few years after Abraham Lincoln was murdered, assassinated, she ends up in a mental hospital herself. There was and they had plenty of outbursts. There was one incident where she arrives late to a breakfast that the inn that they stayed at was having. And Abraham Lincoln kind of scolded her just a little tiny bit. And she throws this cup of hot coffee at our president. And is like so defiant and attitudish for this one little remark of, you're late. Like, and back then, if she was late, that means that other people could not eat. So he was just like, he handled so much. He put so much on his plate, but he was able to get a lot done. And like he said, when he was a child, he left his mark on history. And not a mark that he intended to leave, but a mark nonetheless, and one that every person, not whether you're black or not, like every person can be grateful for. And that is Abraham Lincoln, and I'm so grateful for him. So thank you for watching. Namaste. Peace.